It seriously does. So Tim, let's get into fishing reels, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh, the not fishing reels, spinning reels, right? That's what I
Y'all.
really meant.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an example of our feedback. What I just talked about in housekeeping, right? You had that sweet fucking pumpkin that you made. You had two. You had two pumpkins that you made with the Real AFTV logo on it, and
Yes.
blasted them all over. I was showing people over the holiday weekend and stuff like that. Super high praise, by the way. You're awesome. But
Thanks.
there are certain people that when I showed it to, they were just kind of like, "What? Oh, real? Oh, yeah, okay, I get it. I see the fishing rod now. I see the fishing reel. And I kind of got critical feedback on the logo, but that's for me. That's for me. But what
Okay.
I'm saying is, it was about the reel, right? And we have the spinning reel in the logo. I guess that's the easiest way to put it.
Yep.
So this attention that was brought to the reel made me think about, like, oh yeah, dude, we need to talk about the spinning reel. Like, it's in the fucking logo. And it made me think, yeah, I guess that's just what I think of when I think of a fishing reel now. Like, I know there's more than that, but like, to me, this is the fishing reel. Like, you say fishing reel to me, bam, spinning reel pops up in my head. Is that weird? Am I like, I just think of there's so many different varieties and shit, and that it's just become the standard almost.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is because we live in Minnesota.
Yeah?
I think if you live down south, a lot of times when it depends on what you're into,
Okay. Yeah.
If you fish for muskies or you are fishing bass, a bait caster probably pops into your head.
Oh, sure.
Like,
sure.
I hear a decent amount of even the pros talking about it, where they're telling people, like, don't sleep on a spinning reel, because like all the people that like to fish for bass, like the kids and stuff, the people coming up, they're just like that bait caster, they're just talking about just hucking jigs or hucking whatever it is, and they just want to keep casting it and throwing it and skipping it, all this other shit. So like, they're really into that bait caster. But here in Minnesota, like, the spinning reel works like, there's like an inline reel for ice fishing now that's been popularized, and you can see that in other episodes of ours if you go back to some of the ice fishing stuff. But besides that, like, it's all spinning reels. There are no wintertime bait casters. So when you're talking in the winter, that's all you're using. And when you're out there walleye fishing, for the most part, that's all you're using. And when you're bobber fishing, that's all you're using. I've never seen anybody bobber fish with a bait caster. You probably could, but that's a little bit crazy. So I think I think it's just like where we live. I think more Minnesota as a whole, there's far more spinning reels than there are bait casters. But when you go down south to where it's predominantly bass fishing, I was going to say bass fishermen and then fishing, and the fishing came out.
Fishing.
But the fishing down there is done with the bait casters, So that's what they're fishing with, is them doohickeys, and they don't even think about these. And so these are also, they're great for bass fishing, but they're a lot of times more of a finesse setup when you're talking bass fishing. And I think a lot of the guys down south, especially like the hobby fishermen, the ones that aren't doing it for a job, are out there trying to catch that big fish. So they're just out there hucking, swim baits every chance they can, just throwing the biggest stuff they can.
Okay. Yeah.
And for sure,
just going for a trophy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you could throw big stuff with a spinning reel for sure, because they do that out in the saltwater. And that's another thing. When you go out in saltwater, they have like the bait caster style, the big old school can, like the
Oh yeah, that thing's like a
the
can. Like you're
Abu
not
Garcia.
kidding when you
Yeah,
say it's like a coffee can almost sitting
yeah,
on
dude,
top of that
they're
fucking reel.
massive. Those ones out there are massive because they got to hold so much line. Because some of those fish they're
Oh,
fighting are like 1,000 pounds.
right, right. Yeah, like when
So
you're fighting a marlin or
yeah,
something
exactly.
like that.
But
Yeah.
those are like their trolling. They just pull giant baits in the water.
Right. Yeah.
Everything down there when you're fishing and casting and stuff is
Mhm.
either fly fishing or they're using spinning gear. They don't, for the most part, use bait casters down there either when you get into salt water. And I think
Right.
that's more of the way the reel is constructed. The spinning reel
Mhm.
can be sealed up a little bit easier and not let the salt water get into the gears.
Oh.
I'm guessing. I don't know how,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not a
yeah. I was gonna say
saltwater
you're not a
fisherman.
yeah.
So,
But it's a good guess. So before we go further down, I'm gonna pull out some of the boring stuff. Like, what is the definition of a spinning wheel from Webster?
okay.
A fishing reel with a non-moving spool on which the line is wound by means of a revolving arm, which can be disengaged to allow the line to spiral freely off the spool during casting.
Correct. Good job, Webster.
That's a lot of crazy words, in my opinion.
I, I was listening and it is all right. It's exactly what it is.
So, for you have one with, right, Tim?
Yeah, I have a couple.
So people who are watching, you'll see it. Tim's got
Yeah.
some stuff. We're gonna have a show and tell situation.
Show
But the
and
people
tell.
who aren't, can look at the logo. That's why
Yeah.
we chose the spinning reel, because like for me it was the first thing that just popped in my mind. I did a little sketch. Tim was like, cool, modify, we made a few modifications, and the next thing you know, we got the Real AF TV logo.
Yeah.
And it was like, again, back to the beginning, the logo and all this stuff. It was just one of those situations where it just came naturally. So go check it out. It's a visual representation. It's got the arm on it. Like,
Yeah.
you'll get a good idea, or just Google it. But don't Google if you're
Dude, and
driving.
actually, if I remember correctly, I think you made the logo with like a bait caster. And
Oh,
I was like, can we do a spinning reel? Like cuz it made
okay.
more
I
sense
can
for
see
the
that.
arc of the rod. Like the rod
Oh,
would have been bending the wrong way. So I was
gotcha.
like, put a spinning reel on that,
Oh,
and then it
because
makes sense for the
would have been
rod to
mounted
bend
on
that way.
top, right?
Yeah, because
Okay.
I think you had a
Yeah.
bait caster mounted on the same side that it was, but then the rod would have been bending backwards, and I was like, let's make that a spinning reel because that's makes sense. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I can
yeah,
remember that. I know there was some back and forth about it. And yeah, I can see that being the case for sure. I might have traced to just a spinning when I originally made it. But anyways, I'm getting off
yeah,
topic. So yeah, Tim, go ahead and bring it up here.
yeah. So, can you? Uh, it said that it was a spool or not.
Oh
That's
yeah.
what it is, but it was a reel. So you're talking reel,
Yeah, fishing
and then
reel.
this
So
doesn't move unless it's the drag, which we'll talk about in a second.
yep.
But you have this part is stationary. This doesn't move.
Oh, the part that the line sits on is the
Yeah,
non-moving
exactly.
spool. Okay.
So
Okay.
that's the non-moving part, and
Yeah.
this arm rotates around it as it reels up. So that is what is lining the winding the line on there,
Yeah.
and then you can open it like that.
Line
That's
is
the bail.
wound by means of a revolving arm. Yeah.
Yes, so
That
that's
spins it
the
around that
revolving arm.
non-moving
If you
part.
turn it, you can see that it spins. Now I'm starting to hook my little jig up here, but
Yeah, I see that. It's all good.
you can it spins, but then it can be released. You flip it open, and then you can see how that jig even just fell
Yep.
because the
Yep.
line is slack now.
Yeah.
But then if you
And now you can just pull line off that spool freely.
Right. Yep.
And that's so you open that up when you cast.
And
That's
then
the allow the line to spiral freely off the spool.
You can see that jig right there. If I turn it, makes it tight, lifts it up.
Yep.
Re-puts it back on there. So that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. It's weird to put the words like all these like formal definition when you're just talking about it and showing it. It's like, yeah, of course. Like, and then you put all these words to it and it's like, oh yeah, damn, dude. Crazy.
Yeah, that's
it
what I was
sets
like,
in it a different way, man.
Right. And that's what I was doing, was just replaying it in my head. I'm like, okay, yep. And then the arm, yep.
Right.
And then it, okay, yep.
Yeah. And obviously we're familiar. Obviously you're very familiar with the spinning rod, but with the spinning reel, my bad.
Yeah.
But this is one of those situations, again, the learning part of the Real AF TV podcast, where we're
for sure,
of Real AF TV in general, where it's just like, I want somebody to see this and then go like, oh yeah, I want to know more for sure, because like I don't really get that. Or even like you said, maybe they're just bait casting and they're like, oh yeah, what are these spinners all about?
Or maybe you just don't know, like, because everything I know is from like reading into it, looking into it, figuring it all out on my own, and like digging into these things. I don't know if I ever watched a video or listened to anybody explain the differences in all these different things.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
Definitely here to give some insight on what things are and stuff. And so, I don't know if you had any other direction, but I figured since I got it in my hand right now and I was talking about the spool, it is stationary. And I think I don't know if it's always been stationary. I know there was a couple of different iterations of like spinning reels and stuff when they come out, but this does not spin unless the drag goes. When the drag goes, then that does spin, because when the drag goes, you can hear that ticking and stuff, and then it does spin.
Oh, okay.
You can see that. So that's how the drag works. The drag is letting out line. So like if you had a big fish and it was pulling on it or whatever, then you don't have to worry about the line getting snapped, because your reel is actually allowing line to come off of it, because it knows, oh, that's too much resistance. You gotta give some back.
And so the spool actually does move then.
Yep.
In that case.
Yeah.
Crazy. I didn't understand what that was. Like, see, even as much as I've used it before, I've never had to use the drag. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's a dial to set the drag.
Yeah.
This is the dial.
Yeah, you're getting into the parts, and the funny thing is, I got parts from Dick's Sporting Goods.
Yeah.
So there's the drag.
That's how you learn, man. That's how you do it. That's Dick's Sporting Goods or whatever. You go on, you research it. That's how I've learned most of my stuff. Sure. Is by reading the description of rods and reels, or physically going in and playing with them.
Right. Yeah. No, that's it's funny. It's funny, like it, because it felt stupid to me, just like, oh yeah, Dick's Sporting Goods, okay, huge sporting goods store, but yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah, they're all resources, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, the drag in the front, the spool, which we already talked about, where the line goes around, the bail. That must be the
bail is the lever,
arm.
The arm, yeah, whatever they said, the arm.
Yeah. In Webster, they called it a revolving arm. So, like, more of a proper term would be bail, because I've heard that, open the bail to cast.
Yeah, because it's this whole thing is the revolving arm, but then the bail is just the piece. This I don't know how well you can see it. This piece flips up. I'm trying to put my thumb on there so I don't lose line, but that piece flips up, and when that flips up,
that moving part of the arm, that part that flips
and
of the arm that puts tension on the line.
A little tip for people: if you want to elongate the life of your spinning reels, after you cast that out, physically push that shut with your hand. When you start cranking the reel, it'll close it for you, but I always like hit it. Eventually that will fail. When you crank it with your hand, it will fail. Eventually, but it won't. Almost never if you close it with your hand first.
I agree. I do. I
Yeah.
fish that way too. I really do. I throw it out. I wait till I get to a point, and then I just flick it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we got real quick.
Yep.
I'll show you. They don't always have this ratchet. That's
I'll bring that into your mic a little bit more. I can hear it pretty good right now, but like, I want to hear.
So that's me messing with that. That extra ting is me hitting a lamp. This one, that's a lamp. This is the tick. So that's me adjusting the drag. Okay. So if I pull on it, that's taking out drag, and I'm pulling kind of hard. But if I twist it harder, like I gotta pull pretty hard to do that. Okay. Or if I turn it the other way, almost like give it another one. No resistance.
Oh yeah.
It just comes out.
You're pulling it so much easier. Like even people who are listening, I mean, obviously you're doing a great job with it, but like it was just cool to watch your arm do the same motion and hear the difference in the sound because like it was a huge difference, and it's all that little knob on the front of the spinning reel.
And it all depends on what kind of fish you're going for. Like if you watch the pros, in their like second to last, this last the Bassmasters Elite Series, the second to last one, when they were in North Dakota and they were fishing for, or maybe South Dakota, one of the Dakotas.
It was South Dakota. Yeah, it was South Dakota because they were fishing off the 212 bridge.
Yeah. Okay. Bridge. That's right. Yep. So they were fishing for smallmouth there, and they were kind of like finicky and using smaller stuff. If you listen to them, they have that drag set like super light. Because they're fishing for relatively big fish, and you can hear that the drag's going like almost the whole time, and they're reeling as the drag's going. They're just like trying to give that fish absolutely no wiggle room. They're constantly reeling, and the drag's constantly pulling, and the line is like tight the whole time, but never too tight. It's kind of crazy to hear. Like they set it, and you just hear it go. It's just this the whole fight.
Yes. Now that you say that. Yes, I heard that. I don't know why I didn't. I've never talked about the drag in depth on spinning rod like this or spinning reel like this before. So it didn't click like that. But it was very weird to hear you tell that story. Have you make that sound and then have the memory come back.
Yeah.
Of all those, like every single time almost. Holy
and I think some people get it confused too with there's a bait alert on certain like trolling stuff when the drag will come out, but they have it so it's actually like a louder version of this, like an intentional like a way louder click, so that you know not just that it's the drag, but that you know line is coming off of it and stuff.
Oh.
And I think some people, I've even heard people be like, can you shut that off? You know, like, well, it's not the bait alert. That's my drag, and that's a good sign. That means I got a good fish on. Like, you should be excited when you hear that shit. You know, you should be like, oh, dude, drag's running. Like, and I've seen plenty of different things out there too, where people are talking about, you know, there's Instagram posts where people are being like, what's name a better sound? Like, I dare you to name a better sound. And they'll have like a basketball, like swishing or whatever.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And those are all good. You know, I like the sound of a basketball swish too, but they'll have to be like, name a better sound. And then it's that, you know, like, ooh,
right. You're like, that one gets me going way more than a swish.
Oh, for sure. You're just like, oh, he's got a good fish on.
Yeah, dude. That's so good.
Yeah.
So with drag, there's a little knobby in the front, and you can you turn it up and you turn it down, and it makes it harder to pull the line out. Or pull the line out while the bail's closed. That would be the way to put it.
Yes,
because once it's open, it's free flowing.
Right, when the bail is open, it's 100% free flowing. The drag on the front, which the other reels have it too, but we're just talking about the spinning reel.
Right.
And
drag is a general, like there's a general term about the drag.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, there's a general setting, right, about drag. So then you have the bail, bail open and closed on these things. And that was, can you do that sound though? I just want to hear that sound. Can you click that right in the mic?
You want
The opening and closing of the
drag?
bail.
Oh, yeah. Here, let me make sure that
Got to set it up here.
Ready?
Yep.
That's open. This is closed.
It's such a good sound.
Yeah.
Seriously, I love that sound. And then of course your handle. That's where you're actually reeling. Like that's where the motion, the action is real.
Right. The handle.
Is reel a
pretty
verb
obvious stuff.
Too.
Yeah.
Reel's a verb.
Yeah, it is. Reel's a verb. Reel's a noun.
Yeah.
Reel is a, well, that's spelled different. I was going to say R-E-A-L.
I know where you're going. I know where you're going with that. Trying to recall your English class. So here's the one thing that I didn't get. There's two things, but one thing that I didn't even know, and I'm not joking. I looked at this thing after doing my research. Did my research tonight. Went out in the morning. I was like, wait a minute, what? The anti-reverse switch? What the fuck is that thing?
Yeah. I hate it when it flips. You don't even know sometimes. You're just like, what the hell's going on here?
Okay, so it just said, like in the Dix article that I read, it said something like it's sort of a different kind of drag or like an alternative to drag, or you can work it with the drag. And I'm just like, what?
So it's
can you
like
just explain this? Sorry, I don't mean to keep going on, but like I don't even know what it is, and I just had to say that about the drag to have you work it in here.
Yeah.
I'm confused, man.
I think here's a good way to explain it. It's like a manual drag.
Oh.
So the drag itself, right, it comes out on its own when you pull.
Yeah, and you just adjust it that depending on
watch this.
the situation.
I'll put a little bit of tension on here. So right now, the anti-reverse is off, right? So this isn't going backwards. When I reel it forward, it's staying right where I leave it. Watch when I flip the switch. Where is it? It's right here, I think.
Got to find the one on this particular.
Oh, I hit the mic. Did you see it?
Yeah, you hit the mic, but it was actually a great effect.
Yeah.
Made me jump a little bit because I was like, what just happened?
See how it goes? I reel one way and I can reel it back the other way. I can literally reel the spool either way.
So you can.
So I don't know. That might
it's reeling both ways now. Like the action of reeling in a fish.
Yeah.
Is now both forward and backwards. What?
Yeah. So you can do both. So it's like you can reel it backwards, and it's doing it backwards. It's moving the arm backwards. I'm legitimately just letting line out.
So you're reeling in is one way, and then reeling out this time.
Yeah, the reverse. Yeah, just going backwards.
That's and here's the problem with it. Switch does. So if you don't have the anti-reverse switch on,
then it does stuff like this. Like I'll be like reeling and fighting a fish, and then on a normal day, like if you're trying to grab a net or whatever with your offhand, you can reel and it'll stay there and you have tension on and you'll be like reeling and be like, I got to grab the net. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, no, what the? And just all of a sudden like give him a bunch of slack. And you're like, damn
right.
That switch is off again.
Damn it. I bumped the anti-reverse.
Exactly. So
I've never bumped it. I've never seen it in action before.
Well, and now they've like thought about it where they kind of put it in a better spot or they make it harder to switch. Like this one's anti-reverse switch is right here. It's just
wow, that's way underneath that one.
Yeah, and I've seen some where they're like right back here, way easier to hit. This one's like directly underneath, right up against the spool. It's way harder to get at.
Yeah,
like you really have to be intentionally underneath there.
Right. Yeah.
So keep fucking hitting everything.
Even the one on our is it the presidential, right?
President.
Yep. Yeah. So that one's well formed to the back part of it. Like
the president's a good reel. So you start, when you get into that realm, which is like that's like a $50 reel.
Yeah.
When you get into that realm, they, plus everybody's like learning these things as they go along pretty much. So
Sure.
spinning reels are designed a lot better than they were in the past.
Right. Yeah. Really good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you check out this one. A little bit cheaper.
Oh, yeah. You got more.
A little bit cheaper. Look how big that one is.
Oh,
So
I
that
can
one's,
see that one now.
yeah, it's still in the same spot, but
So
this
like
is a
underneath
little
it.
bit, yeah. This
But
is
I
a
could see it.
cheaper.
You just holding it. I could see the switch. Where on the other one, you had to flip it up and bring it up to the camera and say, like, here it is.
Right. Yeah, and this is, I mean, this is a goddamn. This is a relatively like high end reel. A retail, I think that this one's like 130 or something, and that 13 fishing one I think is like 40.
Okay. Yeah. Big difference.
Yeah.
Are they?
Plus,
They're
I think
always under too, right? Like they're always underneath the rod.
yeah, I think
Like
for
they
the
always
most
hang
part.
underneath.
Yeah, I think for the the spinning reels.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that's where they're supposed to
Hey,
be. But I've
yeah.
seen a lot of people fish them the other way, and it just breaks my soul, dude. They're because you have to reel it the wrong way. They're like reeling backwards and stuff, and you're just like, oh, yeah, it's like the most painful thing to see. Somebody on a fishing pier just like cranking it, like just
Cranking it backwards.
Yeah, I just want to go out there and just be like, can I just show you?
Right. Please, can I just want to help.
Yeah.
Like that's honestly all I'm trying
And
to
I
do.
have shown people too before, and they're just like, but I just like this is just what it feels like. I like to reel
What?
with this hand or whatever. And you're like, all right, well then you just got to go get the other reel, or
Yep.
switch the reel like these ones.
Yeah.
You just switch it. Not
I haven't
all
seen
of
a spinning rod. Well, I keep saying rod.
Yeah.
Fucking A. I haven't seen a spinning reel where you can't switch the handle.
Yeah, those are I think some of the saltwater ones are sealed.
Oh, right.
So you can't.
Yeah. Of
But
course.
there's just
Well, that makes sense.
it's like a cap that's on the opposite side of where the handle is. And then
Right.
you just take that out and put it on the other side. This one actually has a screw in there.
Yeah.
So
nice.
it can't. Yeah, once it's switched, it's nice. Some of them are a little bit cheaper than that, and it's really easy to switch, but it's also easy for it to come loose.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to keep messing with it.
Right.
But
right.
yeah.
That sucks. Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
confession. I wasn't ready for this yet. But
Yeah.
I have to say it. I'm a right-hand reeler.
It's all right. I'm too. You reel with
Are
your
you?
right hand, right? Yeah. So
Yeah,
here's
like my handle is on the right side.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I think a lot of the world is on the right side, but the difference being is that I'm left-handed, so I cast with my left hand.
Right.
You cast with your right hand though?
I do because I'm
Yeah.
right-handed. yeah. So
that's
it's like I push. I to skateboarding reference back to because back in the days, like I think I push manga. Fishing.
You're right.
I'm like embarrassed about it. I'm manga.
Nah, man. There's pros that do it. The only problem is that it's like less efficient.
Right.
When so I'm casting, especially with like a bait caster where you're casting out and you're as soon as it hits the water, you're reeling it back in and stuff. With a bait caster, I have it in my left hand. I'm pushing the button. I'm casting with my left hand, and I never move it out of that hand. And then I just reel it in with my right hand, and then cast and keep going.
Right.
Where yours is like, if you were casting with your right hand, as soon as it hits the water, you got to like switch the reel to the other hand and reel it in.
Yep.
That's just how it goes. Some people are like that. Some people aren't.
Yeah.
Sam is the opposite way. Our buddy Sam.
Mm-hmm.
He reels left-handed because he casts with his right hand. So he'll cast with his right hand and reel with his left.
Yep.
But there's quite a few people that do it like that. Like they just like to have everything right-handed.
Yeah. That's me.
That's me. Not a big deal. Nothing to be
I
embarrassed
did seriously
about.
feel like I was going to come to this podcast and be like, I had it at the bottom of the notes where I'm like, well, we're just going to end on this note real quick. Josh pushes manga, but
just gonna out yourself or whatever. No, man, no worries.
Eventually, someone's going to see it in a video. Like that's why I'm just like going to say it.
Yeah. So I got I got to tell
Is
you
it manga
too,
or Mongo now? I'm saying, I think I'm confusing my
Mongo, dude.
Japanese. Yeah,
I don't even know, man. I've heard it said before, but I just say Switch.
it's Mongo, but
Goofy.
I'm just goofing it up with manga. I've been
Right.
reading. Well, we'll do a different topic about that later. Anyways,
Skateboards. Yeah.
spinning reels. Spinning
Uh-huh.
reels.
Uh-huh.
Okay. You said it about ice fishing already, and you said saltwater and stuff like that too. So like the version that you just have been showing here on the podcast, the version that's in the logo, they
Yeah.
make like big versions of that
Yeah.
for saltwater, right? Like, I mean,
Uh-huh.
it looks the same, it operates the same as far as we know. I don't know that you've ever had your hands on it.
I've seen them before. Definitely
Yeah.
seen them before.
Yeah.
But I
So
don't.
they're the same thing. They're just bulked up, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they make tiny little ones for ice fishing, and it's
Right.
like exactly the same, which I don't that's where I was kind of going with this because okay, cool, just so the listeners and the watchers know, like we typically operate with the medium version because there's like a jumbo saltwater version and then there's like a tiny ice version. We do more open water fishing than either one
Right.
of those. Or
Mhm.
open water, freshwater fishing, right?
Right.
So that brings me to the mini one of ice
Yeah.
fishing. I feel like you said it seemed like 13 really pushed that boundary. I feel like you've said that before, or not boundary, but like push that into existence.
There's
Hey!
there's a little ice fishing. No, 13 is the one that I think they really started making a lot of the inline ones. I don't know if they were the
Okay,
first, but
I
I think that
misinterpreted that.
they started, like, they have their Black Betty is a famous one. I don't know for sure who came out with what first, but it seems like they really popularized it, you know? If not
Gotcha.
them
Yeah.
being the first ones, they were one of the first ones, and they really, you know, brought it to
Yeah.
the market. And now there's
Yeah.
a lot of other companies that never had one before that do make one,
Gotcha.
like Fluger. There's a Fluger President version of inline
Of an inline,
ice
like ice
reel.
fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, so there's some that never existed before. So this one
Right.
is just a little tiny Berkeley. Don't worry about the rod. That's a whole different setup. Like, this is for like a tip up deal.
Oh,
Anyways.
right.
Yeah. So
I gotcha.
it's a different handle is all it is. It's just Velcro strapped on there. But
Yeah.
this is just a little tiny Berkeley rod. I've went away from using this, but the nice part about this is even though it's small, still has the drag, you know.
Ah,
So they have drag on the inline ones, but this
the new inline ones.
yeah, but this one being the like a dead stick version of this is basically like I just set this out and it's on like a tip up deal.
Yeah.
And then if it, you know, I can set the drag really, really loose so the fish can just take it and swim with it, you know.
Right. And then your flag will pop, you run over,
Exactly.
and then make adjustments if needed, and wham, set the hook.
Exactly. Yep.
So is that because when I was growing up and ice fishing when I was young, it was these it was like hand rods almost, right? Like you'd spool it out from underneath the wooden stick, or the tip ups back in the day.
Yeah.
They were just straight up, they were just wooden blocks with fish wrapped around them, or with fishing line wrapped around it with a flag on it. Like
They still
there
have
was
this.
no reel. It was all hand drawn, or like hand pulling, basically.
Right.
Is that the big revolution with the spinning reel in the winter? Because I'm going, seems excessive. You don't even cast the motherfucker.
No, I think the big thing with the spinning reel is just to be able to have that drag. Like that hand is, you know,
Yeah.
there's no drag. That's all you and stuff. So
Right. Yeah.
it just made a lot of stuff more attainable, more stuff that you can do. Being able to pick up the slack faster and stuff. It's not all just hand. Being able to like work a rod. You know, you kind of have you have to have a rod to be able to like do some of these different kind of fishings and stuff. Sure. So when you're that hand stuff is just different. And I think the spinning rod has been around for quite a while as far as ice fishing goes. But
Oh,
there's been
okay.
a lot of advancements in the different rods and the reels and the way you
Mhm.
can set them up. Like this
Okay.
is like a normal tip up. They still have a lot of them where it is just a spool on the board or whatever.
Yeah.
But this one's set up to be able to sit on just like a little piece of metal.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get into the whole thing, but
Right.
that's why this is there, because it's just kind of hinged and it moves. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that really makes a big difference in what you're. It opens up a whole bunch of different things that you're able to do.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
for me, like I have a micro light, so which is like a panfish
Oh,
reel,
yeah.
which is kind of a little bit bigger than this one. But I take that one off and I just put it on an ice fishing rod in the winter.
Oh.
So that just it's a pan
Oh
fishing
shit.
it's a
Double
pan fishing.
use.
Yeah, it's a pan fishing reel in the summer, and then it's just ice fishing because it's a really nice quality small reel. Why not? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But when you were talking about the medium size that we deal with here, there definitely are different sizes even for
There
like
is.
the spinning rods. Yeah. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that was one thing that I wanted to explain because I didn't know that when I was younger, and it was kind of confusing because not all the manufacturers name their stuff alike. And that's why I brought these two reels in too, to explain the differences. Because depending on your manufacturers, some of them go with thousands because there's like a
Okay.
1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000.
Okay.
So this is 13 fishing. This is a Creed. And this is a 1,000. I don't
Okay.
know if you can see that. So 1,000.
Okay.
You can kind of
Yeah.
see that right there. It says 1,000.
Okay.
So
Yeah. For
this
the
is,
audio listeners, he's
yeah,
showing it.
this is the smaller one. This is the smallest before you start talking that you're into
Oh,
like microlight stuff.
right. Okay.
So this is the smallest. But then,
So does that number mean anything besides it's just a size thing? Like, does it have is it
no,
like a milliliters or something like that, or millimeters?
just not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
It's just a size thing as far as I know.
Yeah.
And it might be the actual size of the spool.
Mm.
It might have
Mm-hmm.
something to do with the size of the spool, like the
Okay.
circumference or whatever.
Right.
And then that kind of makes the whole reel bigger.
I
But
suppose it
like
would, because
this,
that's like the center of it. To like get back to the physical presence of it is like the spool is like the biggest part and almost the entire center. Everything
right?
centers around the spool. That's I think
Yeah,
the easiest way to explain this rod or
right.
this spinning rod. God.
Yeah. So you're talking like the biggest is like 4,000 around here, and I think
Okay.
you can get bigger than that. I think there's like 5 and 6,000. I don't know, but as far as like what we're used to and what we have around here, like those are the common ones, 1,000 through 4,000,
Okay.
or like Quantum has 10, 20, 30, 40. Same shit. You
Oh,
just take two
right.
zeros off. So
So
like
you still
this one,
understand it.
yeah, this one here, I don't know how well you can see that. It says Vapor 30
Oh, okay.
because this is a 30.
Yep.
So I don't know how well you can see the size differences, but you can
Oh no,
see
that
that the
shows
one,
up. If you're genuinely holding them on top of each other without the camera, without
yeah,
depth of field, we know how that works with fishing photos. Am I
yeah,
right?
right. No, they're right on top of each other.
Yeah, you can see it then. So I can't
Yeah.
describe that in
Nope.
audio form. You have to
Yeah,
go
and I
see
can't
video
either. The only
or
thing you can
vision.
do is check out the videos if you want to see the differences. Or
Yeah,
you can just Google it. But
sure.
um, there's another size higher. I don't have any 4,000s. The majority of mine are like 3,000s. The presidents
Mm-hmm.
that we have, I'm pretty sure are like 30s. But the same,
Okay.
I don't even know what Fluger does. I don't know if they're 1,000s. I think they're 30s. I'm pretty sure they do 30s and 40s too.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a size difference there.
Yeah.
And
No,
like,
that was actually one of the main questions that I had written down too, is because I was like, so that means all the other ones must translate that way too. Like I don't know about ice fishing because they're already so goddamn small, but like that means the
Right, right,
saltwater
yeah.
ones must have it too. But I'm glad that you asked that because yeah, I just had we're used to medium size around here, but what does that mean? It means
Right.
there's a range.
Yeah. And I honestly think I'm not real well versed with bigger stuff for ice fishing because I don't really go for any big stuff
You're
out
not
there.
musky fishing in the
Right, right.
winter.
Or
Yeah.
like pike. I know some people go for pike and they'll set up like a tip up like this one has for bigger fish and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, I think they're all this small size.
Mm-hmm.
And I should hold up the bigger one too to give people a comparison there.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
this is a 30 and this is the little guy.
Looks like a micro machine next to a Hot Wheel.
Yeah, I'll put it depth of field even like that one's clearly in front of it and it's you can still see the other one very well behind it. Like
Right.
there's definitely a difference in size there. The ice fishing ones are quite a bit smaller. But
Yeah.
I think for the most part they're all the same. The real difference in the ice fishing is just you got to be able to know what kind of line you're going to be dealing with. Like this one's rated to go up to like 6 pounds
Mm-hmm.
and it's like 120 yards. 120 yards, like pointless. Like you can cut your line and like retie it and stuff a lot, but like depending on where you're fishing, it's just
Right.
it's
You need 10 feet.
yeah, right. So it's definitely not needed. But that's the thing is, the smaller sizes too are lighter. When it's smaller, there's less material, it's lighter. So that's why I have
Yeah.
this 1000 on that as like a drop shot reel, so more of a finesse, being able to
Okay.
feel the lighter bait better and stuff. And then
Yeah, for sure.
the 30 is on, this is like a medium heavy spinning reel, so I can throw out bigger stuff.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
casting bigger jigs with that up to like
Right.
3/8 ounce and stuff this summer.
Okay.
So that's
You made a perfect, like you answered my question without me even having to ask it because that's where I was going to go when you started talking about how many yards fit on that ice setup and stuff like that.
yeah.
It made me think like, so the bigger ones can hold more line or like what line would you like, so does it actually depend on what line you put on a spinning?
Yeah,
Reel?
I mean, it's God damn it. I'm just like scraping the ceiling. I don't know if you keep hearing that. That's me scraping the ceiling every time. Sorry.
I don't know if it's going to show up. I can hear it.
I don't know either, but
if it's
every
gonna show
time
up in the final version.
I just wanted to explain that in case anybody heard, like, so
Right.
they know why I say "God damn it" every 20 minutes.
Because Tim's in a basement, in his basement studio, and he has 12 plus foot rods in there, and not 12-foot ceilings.
Right. I mean, they're not 12 foot, but
I know they're not 12. I was
know.
exaggerating, but
Just a giant like cane pole. That would be a nightmare. That's never coming in the house.
that I would never.
Right. So it does matter. It does make a difference on what line you're putting on there, because if you're using like braided line, you can definitely get away with a lot more because braided line's diameter is so much smaller compared to the test.
Right.
And if you look on the boxes, a lot of times it'll say that, where it's like a 30-pound braided line and it says like comparable to, like 10-pound mono diameter.
Oh.
So just the braided line is like so much thinner than the mono of the same test, just because a mono is, like a monofilament. It's like one strand, it's one thing, where braided line is literally a bunch of little fibers braided together. It makes it way stronger, and you can get away with a smaller, not get away, but it has a smaller diameter,
right?
So
yeah.
But as far as like how much line you can put on there, that just kind of goes based off of the different spool sizes and stuff, and they all give you kind of suggestions. Like nothing's saying that you can't. And I thought some of these, I don't know, I guess these ones don't say it on there.
Oh, like you thought it was actually like stamped on.
Oh, mine says it on the spool here. Yeah, I have it on other ones. This one actually lists the different line. I didn't even know that. It says mono, I can do 150 yards at 10 pounds.
That's stamped right there.
And then it says braid, I can do 220 yards at 20 pounds. So there's the difference. I can go
Oh, damn.
more length at a higher test.
Right.
So, yeah. I didn't know that.
And when you're running, and if you're going for big fish and you got a runner.
Yeah. And it's something else for me to look into. It actually says meters versus millimeters. Like meters/millimeters.
Oh.
And it's 165 over 0.26. No idea what that means. I have to figure that one out.
Yep. I'm not sure what that means either.
News to me. Learned something on the podcast today. But yeah, like a lot of them will when you're looking at the line too. If you're looking at buying a reel, you can do that too. Just check it out. Like if you go into a store, you can pick them up and you can look at the reels, and they'll actually say it right on. Like this one said it on the face, right up here on the actual top.
Yep. Right by the drag.
Right. It looks like my 13 fishing one actually says the same. Right on the top there.
Yep. Okay.
And then, but a lot of them commonly will say it right here. The hell was I knocked something else over? A lot of them will commonly say it right here, like
right behind the spool,
underneath.
That,
yeah,
like
it's actually right on the spool itself.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of on the spool, I was going to show somebody this too, because I saw that in the notes you had talked about like cleaning and stuff.
Yeah, that was something that I wanted to get to about these things, and I wasn't going to ask you to take it apart, but like,
well,
I feel like you could make one of these things last forever because they come apart, like, pretty extensive.
I mean, you can see everything in there. It's already pretty much open. Like this one is not one of those super sealed ones.
Right.
It's just open. That gives a lot of the weight and stuff. But that same drag, just twist it until it comes off, and then it just pulls right off. You can see there's your main gear, and that slides on there and stuff. So I don't suggest like pulling this off on every one. Like it's sometimes it can be a little bit tasking to get them back on. Not all the rods and reels are made perfectly. But yeah, you can see that there is like some gear lube in here on different stuff.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, just kind of like an oil change or whatever. Or like if you dropped it in some sand and you got some grit in there, like stuff that's gonna mess it up. You want to always try to like clean that out and make sure. But for the most part, like that President, I don't think I've ever taken that apart and done anything with it.
Just a durable reel.
It has been going strong forever.
Sure.
So it's, as long as you take care of your stuff, for the most part, you're going to be fine. You don't have to worry about it a lot of the times. But yeah, it's definitely something where you can take it apart. I have an Ardent reel cleaning kit. I'm sure you can get them from a bunch of different manufacturers. Ardent is a reel manufacturer, and they make like a reel cleaning kit, and then it has like a bunch of a couple of different gear lubes and grease and stuff in there and different things to get in there and clean it up with. So definitely maintenance. These are high quality pieces of machinery pretty much,
right?
And as long as you maintain them well, they're gonna last,
right?
Yeah.
That's exactly it, is because I know how much you've spent on some of these things, or how much they retail for at the very least, and it's like, shit, man, hope that there's a way to take care of it if you feel like you have to. And then I remember, like the drag, if you screw it too long, you can fall, it falls off. I've never pulled it all the way apart, but I've definitely taken the drag too far and boop,
there it goes. Yeah. And that's what happens. If anybody's ever wondered, like, what happens if you twist it too far? That's what happens. It just comes back off. And if anybody heard me just twisting it back on there, that's all it was. I just twisted it back on, and now it's back one piece. And
Back in
Ready to
action.
roll. So that's how you do that. You just take it off. Just unscrew that. That is universal. I've
That's
never
pretty sick.
seen one that differs from that. It
Yeah.
all, like, you want to take that spool off, you unscrew it like that. Because you can also get different spools. You know, you could have it lined up. There's different companies that will machine
Oh, I don't know
other
why that took so
spools.
long to set in. Sorry.
That
For
spool
anybody
itself,
listening, like, what is
yeah,
driving?
that spool itself, like other manufacturers have machined them like to fit your thing. You know, like
Crazy.
I wouldn't say that, you know, if you have some cheap Shakespeare version, and not shitting on Shakespeare, but like Shakespeare, some of the stuff is just
They
cheaper.
make the real cheap stuff. I mean, they
Yeah.
make that stuff that goes into Walmart in the,
Fluger,
like,
and yeah,
package. The
Fluger and Shakes.
prepackaged reel at
Right.
Walmart.
Yeah. The Shakespeare Ugly Stick is a pretty good rod. The carbon, they make quality rods now, but they've never really stepped it up in the reels
Mm.
because Fluger is Shakespeare. So
Oh, so they didn't
Fluger
have
is
to.
like the high end Shakespeare. So
Right.
Shakespeare's are just inherently cheap. And I'm sure if you're trying to find like a custom machine spooled, you know, spool,
Mm-hmm.
I said that
No,
all messed up.
no, I get it.
But
Machine
yeah,
spool. Yeah,
yeah,
we got.
if it's custom made and you're looking for like a cheap reel, probably not going to be able to find it. But if you're looking for somebody else that made a spool specifically for your rod, they exist for a lot of different kinds of stuff out there. I
Damn.
think more so bait casters and spinning, but
Mm-hmm.
you can find them, and then you can have different lines ready to roll. You know, just have it on the
Oh,
spool and just quick switch that spool and bam,
and
boom.
go. Holy shit. Cool. Yeah. Didn't think of that.
Yeah,
You can just swap out the spool. That's where all
lots
the
of fun
line
stuff.
lives.
That is where the line lives, and it's I don't know if I ever said it when I was just pointing out where it says all the different lines and stuff, but like if you know what you're trying to use, that's what you want to do is try to figure out what you can get away with putting on that spool and stuff. And sometimes you can use the same reel for different purposes.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to
Mm-hmm.
like swap out the line and the rod
Right.
and bada bing.
And boom, you're good.
Yep.
Nice. One thing I couldn't find before, as we wrap up here, Tim, one thing I couldn't find anything that I feel like we talked about more when I was getting my gear that I currently have is the bearing count. Now, we'll talk about ratios later when we can get into ratios, or ratio will become a thing. So I don't want to go into ratios, I don't think, unless we find ourselves here with more time, but bearings specifically, because I felt like there was a bearing number or a count or something like that, and then that inherently translated to quality, or I don't know, expensive.
For the most part, yeah.
So
Yeah,
what is it even? Because I tried to find online. I was like trying to use filters on some. I'm not going to name any names, but some pretty good places for going and getting fishing gear online, and I couldn't find bearing as like a filter. And for me, again, just going back to when I was getting my gear, it was like, oh, well, you shouldn't get less than a 4 bearing or something like that. And I was just like, I couldn't even filter that last when I was
yeah.
looking it up.
Well, because when you're talking about like four bearings and stuff, like those are pretty low on the count. I
Okay.
believe that our presidents are 8.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, and it's just a deal with smoothness.
Okay.
And then there's like I believe there's even an anti-reverse bearing, and there's
What?
another like bearing. Like it's really just quality. But I wouldn't worry about the bearing count so much. More
Okay.
so, just get out there and check out reviews and stuff.
Okay.
Because especially when you're looking at like baitcaster reels have more of a discrepancy in them, because there's like 10, 11, 12,
Mm-hmm.
13 out there,
Okay.
and then Shimano is notorious for having far less than everybody else, but it doesn't
Oh.
matter because of the quality that they use and everything, and the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that they use. It's still really nice,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just as expensive as all the other ones. And you look at the bearings and you're just like, what why is that only an 8 bearing system when I'm looking at 12 at this other company? And it's just like, it's just because it's not necessarily necessary because of the quality of like what you make out there too. I think some of them have like, there's certain manufacturers that have like delved into like ceramic bearings.
Oh,
And
sure,
I don't know anything about those. I don't have any of that stuff, but like mine, this one here is a 10 bearing.
Okay.
You can see that it says 10 bearing. So like, that's, you're getting into higher end stuff for the most part. When you're looking at 10 bearings, 8 is up there.
Okay.
I believe my micro guide one is like a 6 bearing, which is pretty good for how small that is.
Well, yeah, that was the
This
other
one,
question
here
that
is
I
like,
thought of. Yeah.
I don't know. This one might be like 3 or 4, 2 maybe. It really matters in the smoothness, but that's where like when you're talking ice fishing, it's not necessarily needed because you're not worried about like casting out and reeling in and making sure that you're working the bait properly. It's just you drop the bail or you open the bail, you let it fall down.
Right.
And then, but it's like, it's the difference too. Like, this is probably aluminum, this bail.
Okay.
So again, it probably won't rust, maybe it'll corrode over time or whatever.
Sure.
But like when you start talking more money and stuff, like this is a titanium bail.
Oh boy.
So then, then you start getting into the different metals and the different alloys. And when you, start messing with all that other stuff, it makes things lighter. It makes things stronger. It makes things less corrosion resistance.
Yep. And therefore smoother too, right? Like it's just going to work.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to work it better just because of not necessarily being 13 bearings or whatever, but because that they used a better metal in those 8 bearings. That it is. Makes sense.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Anything else you want to throw in here on the spinning reel topic that I couldn't think of?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I hope that helps people kind of, clarify that there's the different sizes and, the different capacities is what you really want to be looking into. But for the most part, I'd say just like get out there and do your research if you want to make sure that you're getting a good one.
Sure.
More money doesn't always mean better just because of whatever. I'll be 100% honest with you. This reel right here retails for like 130 or 140. Not worth it. It's not. It's a very nice reel, but that price isn't worth it.
Sure.
But that's why you got to shop for those bargains because I got this shit for 60.
And it's
for
totally worth it.
This is definitely worth it. This is a high-end reel for $60. But the problem is it just gets into like there's different gear ratios too. Like this is a 6.0 to 1. And because the gear ratio is higher, it actually makes it a little bit harder to crank. You have to use more force because the gear ratio is higher. When a gear ratio is lower, it makes it easier to crank even when you're fighting the fish and stuff.
Oh.
So it's just not, it's nothing a big deal.
Right.
It's just that like if I would have paid 100, I don't think it's as smooth as it could be either. And that's one of those things like with this is a 10 bearing system and this is a pretty smooth reel. But you put this up against the Shimano that has less bearings, I bet that one feels smoother. It's just one of those things, and that's why some of these reels don't ever drop price. So sometimes when you see a good deal, do your research. That's what I did. I got on and I researched this one up.
Yeah.
And everybody was talking it up. Like, this is a great reel, even when they were paying $140. And you're just like, well, if you're happy with it at 140, I'm going to love it at 60.
Right. For sure.
So just, that's my biggest piece of advice is just do your research. Don't rush into anything. But if it's...
Or base it on anything. Like I was thinking there, like, don't just jump into bearings or like this specific size or anything like that. It's like, what do you really want? Look at the reel. It will tell you what kind of line you can use and stuff like that. Like all of that it's kind of there.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what kind of line, it's just more research. Try to figure out exactly what you're
Right.
going
For sure.
for. If anybody's listening to this right now and you're just like, well, what kind of line? Like, what am I doing? Just hit us up on any of the socials we were talking about. I'll help
Right.
you. I'll tell you
Yeah.
what's up.
Yeah.
And one thing I would say too is like if you're going for ice fishing and stuff, that one, don't worry about it. I wouldn't be too picky. Like
Right.
there's
You're not
definitely
doing a lot of work in
yeah.
the.
There's definitely high end stuff that you can get into and stuff, but when you're looking at it and you see like a rod and reel combo that's like $30 and you're like, oh, I don't know if I should buy this. That one's more like check out that reel.
Mm,
The biggest part for a reel when you're talking ice fishing is to make sure that the drag works.
right.
Because that's the only thing is that like if the fish wants to run, you got to let it run. There's nothing you can do.
Right.
So
So make sure it
that's
has a decent drag on it, and it's cool.
yep,
Nice.
exactly. And most of them have a pretty decent drag. It's like as long as it's not.
Right.
That's one of the things where it's like make sure that it's working. If it's old and is junky and there's anything rusting and the parts aren't moving like they should be,
Right.
that might be the difference between a shitty day and a great day.
Yeah, man. Good point. Okay, let's get into the random take where we are going to talk about indie entertainment, going indie. Basically, you had quickly mentioned this thing, Steve-O podcast with Dane Cook in it, and I was like, okay, yeah,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
gonna go check that out. And then it just sparked my brain with like where things are with us. It was cool. So I just wanted to bring it up in the podcast and talk about it. So that's what we're gonna go do now. Hang in there. We're gonna take a break and we're gonna jump into that shit. Here we go.
Yep.